Welcome to the House of Legends podcast, where great women become exceptional. I am your host, Graciela, founder and CEO of the House of Legends by Graciela, a mindset coach and mother of three beautiful kids. My mission and passion is to provide you with the tools that will allow you to unlock and bring out the best version of yourself, which is the key to all change. Some of those tools are mindset, identity work, and emotional mastery. Not only that, but I will also bring you powerful conversations with legends like you, showcasing their journey, life work, and allowing us to learn from their experiences and insights. So don't miss an episode. Tune in each week to the House of Legends podcast and let's unlock the power of your own legend. Let's dive in today's episode. Welcome back to the House of Legends, where great women become exceptional. I am your host, Graciela. And if you're watching this via YouTube, you are now seeing Victoria. She's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman inside out. She's also, I'm just going to mention some of the titles. Like, I was like, how does she do it? Like, she's a business coach. She's also a speaker. She has her own podcast, Becoming Her. She also has created 22 million in sales with her company. And I mentioned that because when we see the number, I correlate the number with impact, the impact in all the lives that you have touched with your life work. But with that being said, what if you, Victoria, introduce yourself? Let us know who you are and what got you here, where you are currently are.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I feel so honored to be here and serving you. And thank you so much for reaching out to me on Instagram and making this work. I know it's a different time zone. I'm obviously in Sydney, Australia, as you can tell by my accent. And so we had to do a little rejigging of the time. So I really appreciate that. So I'm 32 years old. I grew up in Canberra in Australia, which is the capital. It's kind of like a Washington, DC kind of part of the world. It's beautiful. Grew up with two very successful parents that really instilled a lot of great values and great lessons for me as a child. I saw hard work. I saw, if you want a beautiful life, you need to create something magical. We were a very close family. I was very privileged to have amazing experiences. But with all of that said, there are still people that have all of that as a child and don't, pursue their dreams or don't chase after the things that they want. And one thing that my dad, he's an entrepreneur, one thing he always said to me was that, the work ethic and the values are what's going to get you really far in life. So I went to an amazing school. I went to university. I have a degree in a bachelor in public relations and communications. In saying that, I don't know how much that tertiary education actually contributed to my life. I certainly thought I was going to go into like a 9-to-5 career. I thought I was going to go up the ladder and then I thought I was just going to kind of have the typical life where you work 9-to-5, Monday to Friday. And very quickly, when I went into my first corporate role at the age of 22, I realized that that was absolutely not what I wanted. I really feel like we're in a generation that there are so many more options and there are so many other industries that we can go into that maybe weren't available decades ago. And so I kind of had my first experience in entrepreneurship when I was offered a business opportunity in the industry of network marketing. So you can call it network marketing, you can call it social selling, you can call it online sales, you can call it affiliate marketing. And I really had no idea about this industry. But what I did see was people doing things really differently. And there were people living a life that I really wanted to live. And I didn't know how I would do that traditionally by creating my own business. I didn't really have any of those skills. So I went into that industry at the age of 23. I feel so lucky that I was presented with this at such a young age. And honestly, from the minute that I saw the big picture of online selling, affiliate marketing, using discount codes, using, links on your social media, that is really where I was like, oh, this is the place I want to be in. And like you said, over the course of the last almost 9 years of my business, and we've done about over 22 million US dollars in sales through me and my organization, that has come from impacting other people, whether that's with their health, with their, vision and goals and dreams of what they want for their future, or whether that is from the secondary income stream they've been able to create through doing things online. And, it's been a huge ride. A year and a half into my business, I actually moved to the UK and I spent 6 years there in Scotland. I was building my business remotely all around the world. Got to have an incredible experience of living overseas, which honestly, I would recommend that everybody move out of where they grew up. I think that there is so much life experience that comes from living in a different country, experiencing different cultures, traveling the world. Like the girl that moved to the UK when I was 25 wouldn't be the girl that I am today had I have been still living in Canberra, in sort of the city that I grew up in. And then at the end of 2022, so not long ago, just over a year ago, I actually moved back to Australia, and that's how I ended up in Sydney. And I've been on a huge journey, like a healing journey, an entrepreneurship journey, a personal development journey. It has been a lot. Behind every Instagram, behind every business is a person just trying to figure it out. I know that you could absolutely relate to that. And it hasn't been easy, but it has been so, so worth it.
Thank you for sharing. And if you allow me, I would love to go back a little bit when you were sharing that you grew up in a family where there were like to your mom, your dad, they were encourage you, and not so many of us. You have so many stories where like we don't have that kind of support, and like you mentioned as well, even having that kind of support, there's so many people that they don't pursue their dreams. And for you, you mentioned that your dad was a big influence and he was encouraging you. What is and you share about the values and about the hard work as well. But if you can share another one that now that you can recall back or look back and impact as well the direction that you took.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I obviously work with a lot of people from all different backgrounds, and there are people, like I said before, there are people that have that, seemingly perfect upbringing
Yeah.
that don't go all the way. And then there are people that have, maybe a broken family, or people, my ex-fiance actually had, a broken family, but he was so determined to get out of that and to change the trajectory of his life. And honestly, if you look at the most successful people out there, the Tony Robbins, the Oprah Winfreys, they didn't come from success and wealth and privilege, but they wanted to get out of that so badly. So I think it's like one of those things where it really just is a choice.
Yeah.
One thing that my parents really instilled into me was a solid foundation and a solid marriage. It's something I talk about a lot. I mean, I haven't been married. I have been engaged, and I was in a very long-term relationship.
Yeah.
And all the way through the most important romantic relationships of my life, I have been able to look at the foundations that my parents set for me as a partnership. The teamwork, the contribution to each other's lives. My parents were quite traditional, so my dad, worked, and my mum stayed home with us. That was the only way that it was going to work for them. But in saying that, my mum also had this like business about her as a parent. And she still instilled those values in us as in the way that she parented us. And, being able to look at two people that are in love, that are working together, that are compromising, that are respectful, that really come from a place of honesty and trust and integrity. I honestly think that that's how I pour into my business with those values. Some of my core characteristics are peace and loyalty, contribution, freedom, justice, like these things that can be carried through business, relationships, friendships, community, all of those things. So a work ethic is definitely one of them. The way that they showed up as a partnership in their marriage is one of them. And just this real vision for life. I actually did an Instagram post yesterday that said, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it does give you, freedom, choices, education, wellness, mental health, all of this. And that was something that my parents always used to say to me. They used to say, money doesn't buy you happiness, Victoria, but it gives you choices and freedom, and it gives you the ability to do things that the average person wouldn't be able to do. So no, it doesn't make you happy, but it gives you things that contribute to your happiness. And that was something that they really told us as well.
I love that, and I can tell that that's why you're an amazing leader. I mean, I can tell even with the values and the way that you speak and the way that you talk about team, and when the example that you saw in your own house with your mom and dad, like they're playing their own role and respecting
Yes.
themselves and being in cooperation instead of like competing in one sense or another, right? And that also I love the fact that your beliefs around money are really amazing, because like I said, not many of us grew up in that environment or having that kind of beliefs. And I do believe that that was one of the key points for you to being able to attract also the right people to build your team and to get to help others, right? To help get to introduce the products to other people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think appreciation is also very, very important. This level of appreciation. And I think that that's what's missing in the corporate world. I feel like this, appreciation, this gratitude that for whether it's your staff, your team, your mentors, I really think that that is lacking in corporate. You see it in many different industries where there's just this lack of saying thank you, doing the small things, which really drives people to show up better. Like when you're working, whether it's a boss or whether it's within a team environment, when you feel valued and you feel appreciated, you do show up as a different version of yourself. You care more, you contribute more, you add more. And I think that that's really important in business, again, in friendship, in relationships. Like a simple thank you, I really appreciate you. I see you, have the afternoon off. You've worked a really tough week. Like those little things really help the dynamic of success. And again, I saw that from my parents. I saw that towards each other. I'm like that with my team. I make sure that they know how much I appreciate the small things. And I love that. Like, I love when somebody says, hey, Vic, I really appreciate you going above and beyond for that.
Mm.
And that's missing. People really are not acting out of that these days. I really think it's missed.
Yeah, I really love where you mentioned appreciation and gratitude, because those are well, my personal belief is that that is a direct connection with God. Like, because when you feel the increase, it's like giving increase to someone else. It's like thank you, and you feel like it's just a thank you, but it's like you feel something like you want to go even, like you mentioned before, you want to do even your work before more, even better, or you want to go the extra mile just for that small detail that energetically is speaking a lot, because it's in someone is like speaking life into you, is giving you that beautiful energy, like of appreciation, gratitude. And I think that is one of, like you mentioned, is it's something that in the self-development, of course, right? We have that as a habit, right? Appreciating the things that we have, but it's not something that like incorporate or in the big companies. It's like it's not like a culture, I would say,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Of all of them. I would love to also that you mentioned when you were 25 and you decided to move to UK. What what was the reason that you decided to move? And I when we moved to a new place, I'm originally from Mexico, so I was more of my childhood was back then, and I moved here in 2006. So I was like, it was like a shock for my system. I was not speak English. It was just totally like different. But for you, that what was the reason why you decided to move to a new place, totally creating, and like you said, creating your business, of course, online. But what was the thing, and what if you can share with us as well, at least one or two um, beliefs or shifts that you create with that move around you, around your self-image, maybe around how you saw yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm half English, so I had always wanted to move. I had this picture of,
Mm.
the London life, although I ended up moving to Scotland, which was not the London life, but it was still great.
Yeah.
The reason actually was that my ex-fiance was a rugby player and he was offered a contract over there. And it was a really awesome opportunity for us to kind of move for his work, for me to build the business and all of that. So it was really great. It was a no-brainer when we were offered the contract, and so that was great. I think the thing is, before I moved, I had lived at home until I was 23, and then I had moved. Him and I had moved into our own place for a year and a half. But moving overseas was probably the thing I needed to gain independence,
Yeah.
a lot of independence, and as an adult. And I was given, like I said, a lot of skills growing up, but I was still very much like a mummy and daddy's girl. I was still like, Mom, how do I do this? And, Dad, what do I do for that? And I would still be relying on that a lot. And moving overseas helped me gain independence. I was, on my own. I was having to do all these things on my own. Um, it was an opportunity for me to travel the world, see the world, gain experiences, meet new people. The culture is very similar to Australia, but different as well.
Yeah.
The weather, it sounds so crazy, but the mentally dealing with the dark months of the year, very, very cold, very wet and rainy. Like it doesn't, unless you've lived there, you can't understand the mental pressure that puts on you. But it
Mm.
was also an opportunity to really take my business to the next level, because when I was living in Australia, I was running the business alongside working in corporate, and I also had a weekend job. So this was really a time for me to look at my life and think, okay, do I want to find a job in the UK, or do I really want to focus on building this business up? And it was almost like putting my back against a wall, leaving my corporate job, which was the safety net, and really believing in myself to go over there and make this business work as a full-time income,
Mm.
and take away the extra that I was getting here, which was the best thing for my business, because I accelerated very, very quickly because I didn't have a choice. It was either put all my energy into the business or keep doing what I'm doing and find a job in the UK, which I didn't want to do because, the wages are significantly lower than in Australia. So, yeah,
Mm.
they were probably the biggest thing, like finding my independence and really stepping into that next level of my business, which also came with challenges, having to really step up into personal growth, having to become a better leader. There was lots that came with that as well.
I the way that you describe it is coming from a really empowering way. It's like it's not coming from a like I have to do it. It's like you it was just like I choose. I
Yeah.
get to choose and I'm gonna choose this. And like you mentioned, there's some in every single I will say without assuming in every single journey there's like ups and downs. But after you deciding I'm gonna build my business, this is what I want, this is what I'm going for. I'm not negotiating to give myself another option like getting a job or something. In those days where you felt like and maybe things were not flowing in the way that you wanted or something, how you were able to maintain that pace and that vision? Because I know as an entrepreneur, I think um, this is one of the things that at any level could happen. We can have, like you said, success and we want to reach the next level, or like you said, we decide to go all in our business, but how to maintain that decision and that fire when things are not happening in the way that we want, or there's some situations or circumstances. How you were able to maintain that fire?
I mean, it's a great question. There's kind of two parts. So there's a part of me that was driven by the thought of not being successful. So I was driven by, I can't fail. I don't want to let anybody down. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to be the person. It was very, it wasn't driven in this like, I'm going to sit and manifest and, hope it all works out. It was driven by, this is a choice. I have to make this work. I'm determined. And it really was this relentless work ethic to be something. I have always been driven by significance, recognition, being the best,
Okay.
doing things faster than people, which, is one of the biggest lessons that I learned in my journey, is that you can't really be driven by those things, because at some point you're going to burn out. You have to be driven by a much deeper purpose. And that's a big lesson that I learned about 5 years into my business when sorry, excuse me.
It's all
Someone's
good.
yeah, so that was definitely something that I was driven by, but up until a point where I was like, there has to be a deeper purpose about why I'm doing this, not just to have my name in lights all the time, because that's not a sustainable way to run a business either. And it's also not the most ethically great way to run a business, in terms of, you can't always be best. And there will be seasons where you have to take a step back. And if your self-worth is driven by showing up in the lights, then at some point you will see a downfall of that. And I learned that. And, that was a huge lesson for me. So that's kind of how I went all in. And also just this vision for having things that I wanted. I wanted choices. I wanted freedom. And I was willing to do it myself. And I wasn't waiting for anybody to do it for me. I wasn't relying on anyone to do it for me. I saw an opportunity with the business that I have to say to myself, okay, I can create a life that I choose what I do each day. The decisions that I make are based on what I want to do. I have time. I have this great community around me. And so it was kind of both of those. It was driven by this significance and this relentless need to be the best, which is great in the beginning of your business, not sustainable long-term, but great to kind of get you out of the gate. And then it was this drive to want more, have more freedom, time, choices, the ability to live a life on my terms.
Right. And I do believe that when you mention both, I think those are really, really powerful. And like it's like like the initial fuel, right? Just to like propel ourselves. And if you can go a little bit deeper. You mentioned something that caught my attention. You said after 5 years, I reached a point where I needed to make a shift, I will say. And if you can talk a little bit about that, because like I was mentioning to you before, we only see the the pictures, the trips and all that. But what was that moment for you that you knew that something needed to shift in order for you to create something even bigger and make an impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I got to a point where, well, to be honest, the pandemic happened, and a lot of what I do in business is driven by my name in lights, or whoever's name in lights. And we didn't have events for 2, 3 years. So I was not being recognized at big events, and I wasn't, going on these trips that I was earning, which really was my self-worth. I had really identified myself as Victoria McHugh with the title of where I was in my company, and not Victoria McHugh sitting behind a Zoom making an impact on people. And so when those things were taken away, the events, the recognition, the things that I could post on social media, I really sat there thinking, well, now I don't feel worthy. Now I don't feel significant. Now I don't feel, like this person who
Health
is
over. Yeah.
yeah, correct. Like I just was sitting there being like, oh, well, my entire self-worth is wrapped up in what other people think about me, what other people see. And I, behind the scenes, was not living in the integrity of who I was in front of in front of everyone. And I remember there were points in my relationship, funnily enough, at the time where I felt like I was two different people. I was Victoria McHugh that was at home eating junk food, watching TV, and not looking after myself mentally, physically, and emotionally. And then I was this Victoria McHugh that showed up in my business, speaking on stage in front of 20,000 people, doing all of these fantastic things. And
Yeah.
I was so unaligned in my personal life versus the way that I showed up in business, which I know 100 million people can relate to that,
Yeah.
especially
Oh,
in
yeah.
business. And I really allowed my health to decline. And I developed this limiting belief that I couldn't have it all at the same time. So
Mm,
I either was completely succeeding in my business, doing things that no one had ever done, but I was binge eating, not working out, falling apart, personally, but I was making all the money and I was getting all the things. So I was like, it's okay. And I even remember saying to myself, you know, I don't care if I'm unhealthy as long as I have these other things that were in the business and the company space. Then I, swung the other way where I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in on my health. But then I wasn't showing up in my
you.
business. Yeah.
Mm,
And then it was like, but how do you show up to the relationship? So I had this limiting belief that when one thing was going really well, the other things had to suffer. And I
yeah.
couldn't find the balance of I can enjoy a really nice meal and go to the gym and, have cuddles with my partner and show up on the calls.
Mm,
And so that was where it kind of all blew up 5, 6 years into my business. And I really had to do the work. That's really where the hard healing work happened of how do I align all of my values and put them all together and make them all successful. And I think a lot of people probably struggle with that. I think it's probably why a lot of marriages and relationships break down in the entrepreneurial space because they're trying to be able to have it all and they can't figure out the balance.
yeah. And thank you for sharing that because like there's not so many people get to share this, but it could happen. Sometimes we have some beliefs that, or either we thrive in business, but in this area, we're just I will say no focus on our health or vice versa, and we have this unconscious, I will say unconscious because we don't do this on purpose. I don't do this on purpose, right? That we have to choose either this is working or, and instead of seeing that this and that. And I
Yes.
I think you mentioned that is really amazing that when you were able to choose to integrate and see yourself, I can have it all, and
Mhm.
doing the inner work. And I think if you can mention some of how you, after you deciding I'm going to do the inner work, if you can mention 2 or 3 tools that help you to create, and when I say create, it's just embody a new identity of you, embody this version that can have it all, having that beautiful relationship, showing up, going to the gym, enjoying a nice meal, right? um
Yeah, and I think just to preface that, there
yeah.
will be times in your journey where something has to give. And I say that to my team all the time. In the early stages of building anything great, there might be a time where you don't go on as many date nights, or there will be a time where you can't get to the gym as much, and that's okay. But for me, it turned into this absolute belief that when one thing was going right, the other thing was going wrong. And that's kind of, the mindset that I was in. So there will be times where something is going to have to give a short-term gain, short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. But for me, it was like my whole life was like, it's fine. I don't need to focus on that because this is going well. And that's where the problem was. So to go into it, really the biggest journey for me was over the last year and a half. So when we ended up moving back to Australia,
Yeah.
My fiance and I decided to part ways after 10 years, and it was truly the most needed decision in my life at the time. I had been going through a really tough time in the relationship myself.
Okay.
I'll only speak from my perspective, but I had gotten into a place where I had extremely low self-worth, extremely low value, and I felt like I was really abandoning the truth of who I was to really cater to the relationship. Now, it is very normal for two people to grow apart. I always say,
Yeah.
yeah, like I always say that, if you get in a relationship really, really young, and honestly, kudos to those people who are high school sweethearts, because I don't know how they do it. But for me, we had gotten into a relationship when I was 21 until I was 31. So 10 years of my life. And who I was when I was 21 and who he was, we were not the same people as we were at 31. Our values didn't align. We were not compatible anymore. We were trying to honestly turn put a square peg into a round hole for about 2 to 3 years while we were engaged. It was not working, but in the process of trying to make it work, I was changing who I was at the core, and I was abandoning who I really was. And I was living in this internal conflict of who I felt like I had to be in the relationship to make it work versus who I knew I really was. And I'll tell you, like, it was so deep, and it was not him. We just weren't a match. Like, he didn't do anything.
Like you said, it was no longer in harmony. Like, no, totally.
No,
That's
like we
right.
just weren't a match anymore. We didn't like the same things. We didn't, have a lot of compatibility. We were just on two different paths. And instead of being brave enough at the time to say, I've loved spending the last 10 years with you, but this isn't working anymore. I tried to hold on to it so tightly that everything else in my life fell apart. It really did. My business was suffering. My mental health was suffering. My physical health was suffering. I was trying to cope by eating, by doing all of the wrong things, not the wrong things, but doing all of the coping things.
Yeah.
And when there was like a particular moment that happened with him, that I thought, if I don't leave, I'm going to lose her forever. I'll never get Victoria back if I stay. And again, it was nothing to do with him. It was everything to do with the way that I saw myself. And over time, I had been breaking down my core self in order to live in this relationship. And I'm sure maybe people that are listening have been there, or they know someone who's there, or they're out of it, or they're in it. But I was so afraid of being alone. But the truth is, I was the most lonely when I was with him.
Yeah.
And that's a different kind of lonely. Like being alone in the presence of the person that is meant to make you feel safe is the most lonely and internal conflict you could possibly feel. Like I was abandoning this person inside of me that said, I don't agree with this, I don't believe in this, but I'm just going to sit in silence. And again, it had nothing to do with him and everything to do with the fact that we were not compatible anymore. And I wasn't willing to like give up, because I'm such a fighter. I'm such a like justice person. I will fight to the death for something I believe in and something I want, which is why I have been able to be so successful in business. And I was fighting for something that was not working, until the point where I was like, if I keep fighting, I'm only fighting this battle with myself. Yeah. And so I ended up leaving that relationship, or we ended up splitting.
Yeah.
And it was the most relief I've ever felt. It sounds so crazy. Like I had lived my life with this person for 10 years, thought I was going to marry him, all of the things. And when he left and didn't come back, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in 2 years. I felt like, oh my gosh, it's up to me. Like you can be whoever you want to be now. You don't have anyone telling you this. You don't have any fear. Like, obviously there was some fear, but no fear internally. And I was like, I am so ready to do the work to become the person that I really want to be, or the person that was in there that I was like shoving down for so long and internally trying to figure it out. And so I went on this huge healing journey last year where I was just so committed to self-development. I did therapy. I read all the books, girl time, figuring out my values. And I think that's really, really important. Like, what are the things that you value most in your life? Because if we don't know, then we can't live in alignment. So, for example, like, you know how I told you that, I wasn't focused on my health and, I let all of that go. One of my core values is health.
Yeah.
One of the things that I commit and prioritize every single day is my health, my physical and mental well-being. Now, that was a core value that I didn't know at the time that I was binge eating and not going to the gym and being lazy and all of that. I didn't know that that was so out of alignment until I did the work to be like, you know what, this is actually a core value of what makes me happy, what makes me show up as the best version of me. When I feel healthy, when I feel good, I show up in my business as the person I want to be, in my relationships, in my friendships, and in my life. And so that was something that I really focused on. I also focused on, coming back into who I truly am, and figuring it out. And it's a long journey, especially if you're like me and you spent years not prioritizing it. So it's a long journey. I'm still on it, but I can tell you that the last year of my life, even though it wasn't the best year I've ever had in business, there have been many more times I've had better years in business. It was the most important year of my life.
That feels so inspiring and so brave, because not many women have the bravery to say, you know what, I've been putting 10 years into this relationship and it's no longer make me happy. It's no longer, I don't feel like we're growing. I don't feel like this man, like you said, that this man that's supposed to be, I supposed to be feel safe or inspired or building something. It's no longer there. And for many of us, we try to, like, we are as this feminine energy, we try to
Fix it.
to save it, to like do like you said, everything around, to sometimes to feed, to bend, to try so hard for the other person. And that's why we put even more energy into other people. And you mentioned something really, really key. You felt the relief because you were no longer energetic doing the work for two people.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
is,
I remember like calling my best friend Priscilla, and I said to her, I've just walked back into the house because I went on a trip while he was moving out. And I remember walking in and being like, I feel like I should feel really sad. And I feel a
yeah,
certain
it was
way.
like, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I feel a certain way, but I don't feel sad. Like I feel something. I'm not a
No
rose,
sadness though.
but it wasn't sadness. It was, okay, well, that was a great chapter of my life, but I'm really excited for what's coming. And I feel like that's when you really know that you're actually in alignment with yourself, where you can look at a situation and you can think, logically, this is a mess, but I feel really good about the mess. And I feel really at peace in the chaos. And I feel like, peace is huge to me. Feeling peace in relationships, friendships, business is absolutely essential to me and my mental health. And I felt peace. And, I am so grateful for that time in my life. I feel like he was the perfect person for my 20s. We were chasing our dreams and doing all this cool stuff, but he wasn't right for me in this chapter of my life, in my 30s, where I needed something different. And I also needed to find myself. And I don't think I ever could have done this work with anybody, not just him, but I don't think I could have done it with anybody in my space, in my energy, because I am someone that is very driven by people's energies. And I am someone that will put others first because I'm a naturally very nurturing, very loving, compassionate person. I cared very deeply about people. And I don't think I could have cared very, very deeply about me
Exactly.
without, yeah, without being able to make myself a priority, which I would never have done in the relationship.
Mm, completely. I feel it. And I do believe that once we choose ourselves, like you said, is when everything is start rearranged. And we can feel in the middle of the chaos. This will apply for relationships, for everything. When we ask for a change, everything is gonna is gonna feel, or it's gonna appear like it's falling apart, but it's just rearranging for the things
Yeah.
and for the people situations, for the new that has to come for us, right? And I saw one of your posts that you did on your Instagram, and you put like a before and after, like a 12-month apart. And
Yes.
for me, it was like mind blowing. I mean, not only because, of course, physical experience, but the glow, I felt the energy through the post. And it
Yeah.
wasn't in a video or reel. And I felt the energy, and I was like, wow, it's when we feel, when we found ourselves. And like you
Mhm.
mentioned, this is a long, I think it's, people say, you know what, like I'm working on myself. I think we work every single day. We're always
Oh,
getting better and better. It's like a pain. Uh, I see this as a layer, it's just peeling and
yes.
peeling apart the things that we are not,
Mhm.
right? It's just uncovering all the magic that is inside.
Yeah, yeah. And it's about putting up boundaries. It's about, not living your life for other people. It's about really sitting back and saying, what do I need? I had a situation come up this week where I really, like the old Victoria, would have said yes out
Yeah.
of obligation and out of like, oh, I have to do this. I should do this. And I just sat back and I was like, I don't want to. There's
Mm,
no part of me that wants this. It's going to really inconvenience my day if I say yes. It's going to throw me off. I'm just not doing it. And I felt really empowered. I was like, cool. Like this is just, I'm just setting a boundary around what I want and need. I've worked so hard, not only in my business to create this life, but I've worked so hard on myself to be able to show up a certain way. And that's what I choose to do every single day. And you keep learning. And I've made so many mistakes along the way, as we all do. I think that as
well,
long as you can take accountability and apologize if necessary and move forward, then, make mistakes left, right, and center. Um, but yeah, it is really important. And my health journey really, like I said, it really started with figuring out what aligned with my core values, which was health, which was something I was not at all prioritizing or living with. I felt really lacking in confidence, which
mm,
confidence doesn't necessarily come from how you look, but also it does. And I don't care what
yeah.
anyone says. It does, of course, because
It does. I'm
yeah,
telling you, it does.
yeah, it does. Like you show up a different way when you're confident. And so for me, the confidence came from feeling better, looking better, also having self-discipline and commitment. Because every time we say we're going to do something and we don't follow through when it comes to ourselves, we are basically telling ourselves that we are not important
That's
and
true.
that we're not worthy of going to the gym and making ourselves feel better. We're not worthy of eating a good meal that we know is going to nourish our body. So every time you choose to not show up for yourself, you're basically internally telling yourself you're not important. So imagine if you have a child and every time that child said, mummy, can I go to the gym? You were like, no, you don't need to go to the gym. That child would be sitting there being like, but I thought going to the gym would make me feel healthy, and you're telling me that I don't deserve to feel healthy.
Mm.
Or, mommy, I really feel like having a salad. No, we're getting Macca's because the salad's too expensive. So you're telling your child that they're not worthy or they don't deserve to have a meal that's a little bit more expensive but better for their health. So these are the things that we say to ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I love that analogy that you bring in now. I'm a mom of 3 kids, so when I decided to put myself in shape, I was like, I do this for myself. Of course, like you said, regardless of everyone saying if the physique doesn't count, it does count. Like
It
mm,
does.
for the
And
appearance,
if your
you feel.
yeah. And if your children said, Mummy, I really want to do this, you would say, absolutely go for it. But then when you say to yourself, I really want to do self-care for an hour, or I really want this, you say, no, 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 you're not important. And then we develop this belief of my needs don't matter. I'm not important. I don't choose myself. And then that does damage along the way. And that's really where my mindset was like, it's okay if I don't do that because I'm the least important person in my life.
Mm.
And in fact, you're the
You're
most important person. And we always have to choose ourselves when we can.
Yeah, and yes, we are actually the most important person because when we feel great, like as you mentioned, when we look and feeling great, and we actually is actually in that point where we can give to others. Like, I mean, I do believe that when we are in this optimal state physically, you name it in your business, is when actually you can lead, you can help someone else.
Mhm.
Before, I mean, you can try, you can do your best, but something is not clicking yet. And it's like you said, it's the outer alignment. But when we take a moment and set ourselves for success by putting ourselves first, is when everything rearrange, every single thing. And it doesn't happen in one red hot second, but it does happen, right?
Yeah, it compounds into a belief that you do or do not deserve something. And that can be a great thing, or it can be, and again, it's what your values are. Health might not be your core value, and that's okay, but just align yourself with whatever it is that those things are. Your core value could be family, and
Mhm.
but you're choosing all these other things over your family.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
now you're again out of alignment because you're saying that the most important thing to me, my core value system says that family is the number one thing, but I'm choosing to do something that doesn't involve my family. So, now you're in this conflict. And it is different for everyone. My core values are different to yours. You're a mom, I'm not. Like it's
It's
figuring
the
out what it is
first
for you.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really adore that you bring in that because many of us we can just go through life and with if we don't have that clear, I'm always saying this also applies for goals and values of if for everything. If you don't clear with the things that you want for your life, for the goals, for the values, someone is clear and someone is gonna project that in yourself. Like that's it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to ask you something, Victoria, and I know that many of us when we see other women and we see her thriving and we have a lot of compliments for her, like we can see so much magic. But in before to close up our conversation here, I would love to ask you, what is your superpower? What is your superpower? What is that that you have here for not for others, not only for others, but also the gift that you know that you are.
I think that my superpower is probably being able to see
Mm.
success in everybody. Um, Probably the ability to look at someone and say, I see more for you.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be any particular person. I feel like I could walk up to someone on the street and hear their story and say, I see more for you. And that's a huge part of what I do in my business as a coach is being able to pull that out of people and say, tell me everything. Because I really don't believe that most people are living the life that they truly, truly want. I
Yeah.
really feel like most people are settling in marriages, settling in relationships, settling in income, settling in business, settling in wherever. And I just feel like I can talk to someone and say, what is it that you truly want, and have that conversation with them. I'm also extraordinarily empathetic on
Mm.
all levels. I feel very deeply for people. I feel people to their core, and I show up for people in a way that I wish or I would want people to show up for me. I always want to show up as the best friend, the best partner. I want to make people feel special, which I'm an Enneagram too. Have you ever done the Enneagram?
No.
Oh, it's like a human design. So anyway, it's really cool. But
Oh,
I
okay. Yeah, humans. Yes, of course.
It's like a sort of human design. And I'm like an Enneagram 2, and that is like the nurturer, the carer, the mother, which is weird because I don't want to be a mom, but I feel like I have those
The nurturing. Yeah.
yeah, those attributes. And I also would say like self-awareness is
Mm.
probably something that I've developed. Now, that is not something I was born with, let me tell you. I was not. But I have developed self-awareness. I look, if I walk into a room, I'm looking who's feeling left out, who's not having the best day. I can feel it. And I'm very self-aware in making sure that other people feel seen and heard and valued, which all ties into, helping people see their potential. And I feel like that's what I pride myself on is that self-awareness to look at people and say, I see you. I can see you're having a hard day. Here's a little extra something. I bought your favorite chocolates because I know that you love them and that's going to make you feel good. And just being that person, which again, I need to put boundaries up around that, which again is the work. The work never stops because I can also get to a place where I feel burnt out and I
Yeah.
have to look after me. So the boundary is, do I really want to do that? Do I not want to do that? Do I feel like I have to? Yeah.
Oh God, what an amazing superpower. And it was not only one, it were a few, like that
I feel
whole
like they maybe all mesh into the
like
one.
yeah, and you know what? I have to say this to you, and I love it because no, you only mention one or two, you mentioned three. And I was asking this question to the guests, and some of them they were like, "Well, let me just give me a moment," and they're like, some of them were mention one or just one, but you're like, there's this and that. I can feel it. I was like the natural leader, like I see you and I'm gonna hold the belief because I can see beyond. I can see beyond the situation. I can see beyond the story that you're telling to yourself. And that is such a gift.
Thank you. Thank you. And, that comes from the work as well. Like me 2 years ago would have probably answered with, I'm really successful in business. That
Mhm.
probably would have been my answer because remember, I was leading from significance, recognition, the bright lights.
Yeah.
And now through all the work, that really is just, a tiny little part of who I am. It's not who I am anymore. And, that could be for athletes. It could be for anyone that's in a position where they are driven or recognized through their achievements. It's called the achievement trap, where you are constantly chasing the next thing that's going to make you feel special or make you feel significant. Whereas, like, I can sit back and be like, I just had a great conversation with the girl packing my groceries, and that has made me feel significant that I've been able to impact that person. So it's the same feeling in a different way.
Form. Yeah. I love it. And your energy is so beautiful, Victoria. Now, even just sharing this example about I can have a great time. I mean, the person packing my groceries or with a leader on of whatever company, that is it speaks a lot from you, like from who you are and who you are becoming. That is so
And you're
beautiful.
doing such a great job. I love your podcast. I love your Instagram. Like people like you are the reason why people like me can have a voice and have a platform. And I'm super grateful that you reached out and that you followed up with me because I know the messages got lost somewhere, but that shows to you as well, like how committed you are to helping your audience and impacting people because you are doing the work, you're finding the people, and we're very grateful for you as well. And I appreciate, you giving me a space to chat today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm so grateful for this whole interview. It was just such a pleasure to meet you in another way, like I said before, behind the scenes. And just this is just such an amazing gift. I'm gonna put your details, either your Instagram, either above or below this video, also on the podcast. If you can share here, before we leave, where we can find you. Like, what is your hangout more on Facebook, Instagram? Let us know.
Yes, I'm on Instagram. It's just at Victoria A. McHugh. That's where I am mostly on my stories. You get all different versions of me. You get the glammed up version, you get the napping during the day version, you get the gym version, all of that. I have a podcast, Becoming Her, as well, which is like a slow and steady. It's a bit of a passion project for me, to be honest. I love having conversations. I wanted to put it on the podcast, but it's not my main thing. And in my Instagram bio, there are like links to work with me and everything. So I'm so grateful for your time, and I really appreciate this. You're a great interviewer, great host, and I really hope that your listeners get something out of this.
Yeah, I bet that all of the listeners will enjoy this. Are enjoying this. Like I did enjoy this, and there's so many women that will identify in one part or another of the story, and that is one of the main reasons why we create, is to bring more women together and just see other people doing amazing things. But also when like I said before, when I saw you, I was like, wow, this and that. And we right now, when you were sharing your story, we can like identify ourselves in one area or another, and just see it like, if she can do it, I can do it, and see different parts of the woman. That is so amazing.
Thank you. And I can't wait to chat to you again soon.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Your presence is greatly appreciated, and it truly means a lot to me. If you could support us by leaving a 5-star review, it will help us to connect with more extraordinary and influential women like you. With that being said, thanks once again, and let's look forward to an amazing and legendary week ahead.